Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today, we'll be going over everything you guys need to know when it comes to combinations with EX augments over an NGS. But before I jump into that, if you guys are new here, as always, my name is Chrono, where I cover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate subscribe so we're towards that 10K mark, hopefully, at the end of this year. I've seen the support you guys have been giving the videos recently, and it has been awesome. I appreciate every single one of you. And all of those of you who are new, keep in mind, if you guys have any questions, either toss in the comments or feel free to jump into Discord and DM me directly. I'm more than happy to answer those questions for you to the best of my ability. Either that or someone in my community might answer you in Discord. I'm working on setting something up for that, so just stay tuned for that. Either way, let's talk about these EX augments and what I think you guys are really going to want to keep an eye out for if you're looking at building up your own set or possibly selling something that might make you some money. All right, so there's a lot of information here, and I don't have a lot of time. You guys can't see it. I'm actually going to show you. But the astute amongst you know that my videos go live usually around 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every single day. Well, it is 2:13 at the moment. So that makes it a little difficult to get this video recorded. And through some things that are going on at the moment, I happen to have lucked out and I can actually get this video recorded. We'll see if it goes live. It depends on circumstances. So, EX augments. Realistically, these fall into two major categories, and in the second major category, a few minor categories. Just to get this out of the way, if you're looking at these suffixes, so H, P, X, D, or R, they're not all that important. They're useful in the set of min-maxing, but if you're curious of like the best ones versus the worst one, all down resistance is basically in most cases fairly useless. DR is pretty solid. And then the rest, of course, depends on your class. So HP, PP, HP, PP combination depends on what class you primarily play. Some classes have tons of PP and they don't really need the extra PP. Some classes are very defensive. They don't need the extra HP. I mean, in some cases, they don't even need the extra DR, but I feel like DR is always useful, no matter how you look at it. I think it's the most universal one that's okay, realistically. And PP, though it is the more offensive choice, is only really that offensive when you hit specific breakpoints. To be able to push extra PAs, or maybe push you an extra percentage of a PA that allows you to do some funny resets. So not really a huge deal. I wouldn't really focus on it. It's only like if you're hyper min maxing and you're looking at two of the exact same setup and you're like, hey, what are these suffixes that can help you decide between the two of them? Or maybe you're looking at two that you're selling and you're like, hey, what are these suffixes? You know, maybe one of them is more valuable than the other. If all of them have like R on them, then like they don't care, versus like one that might have like X, P, or H on it. So that's pretty much it when it comes to the suffixes. Now we can go into the actual EX augments. And man, I already feel winded because there's so much to talk about. So like I mentioned, two major categories. We have what I consider conditional damage as well as utility. Now, conditional damage, the conditional damage EX augments are the ones that start out lower than the 4.5, or in some cases at the 4.5. We'll talk about that. I actually don't consider that one exactly conditional, but we'll talk about it overall. But so lower than the 4.5 floor amount that we usually get, or 4.5 potency amount we usually get. And then utility are the ones that just offer some form of HP or PP utility or defensive utility as part of the way that they work. So talking specifically about the conditional damage ones, we'll start with the one that I feel like I give more credit than it really deserved, and I'm going to explain it a little bit more in detail, is Stealth Wall. Of all of the conditional damage bonuses, I feel like this one's the worst, and let me explain why. So it is 4% base. It gives you 10% damage resistance when you have enemies targeting you, and it gives you 1.5% damage against enemies not targeting you. So against enemies that are actually targeting you, they deal 10% less damage. Against enemies that aren't targeting you, you deal 1.5% more damage. So why is this not that great? You would think this kind of synergizes right with something like Force or Ranger or even Bow Braver, where they have that skill built into their kit where they don't want to have threat. Well, in solo, you don't really have a choice. You're always going to have threat, so it just doesn't work there unless you want the damage resistance for some sort of damage res weapon, using as like survive, maybe some form of one shot in like speedrunning content maybe. That might be a reason to have this, but there are other options that are, I think, in my opinion, a bit better. But again, talk about that later. But the potency is really nice, right? It synergizes with them. However, in most situations, the other options of damage bonus you can get for the conditional damage bonuses, they're much easier to maintain and they don't require that that you don't have threat, basically, right? Something you really can't control. The other options are something you can mostly control. This is something that you really can't. The more damage you deal, the more likelihood that you're going to have threat anyway. And if you're playing primarily in groups and you're playing with randoms and you play fairly decently, you're going to find that you have threat more often than you want to. And you're probably thinking, well, just combine it with Dazzle Camo. Absolutely right. But again, you can combine any of these other options with Dazzle Camo as well if you don't want threat. And that also means you don't have to keep Ranger on your as a subclass. And you're probably thinking, oh, well, then just have Ranger slotted as a subclass. Again, it's a lot to invest into something that isn't as easy to maintain, something you might not have control over. The reality of the situation is that you're probably going to get threat occasionally, and it's going to be worse in that situation specifically. Moving on, we have the other three options when it comes to conditional damage bonuses. It's three, but sort of not. It's kind of, one of them falls into utility in my opinion, but I'll explain that in a bit more detail. So Lively HP. Lively HP is the one I feel like most people are going to use. It's the one I'm probably going to recommend the most people use, honestly, because it's just extra damage when you're above 95% HP. It's 4% floor, 4% base, excuse me, and then 1.5% potency on top of that when you have extra HP. You also get damage resistance. So if you do take a hit, you are likely to not take as much damage, or you're taking less damage. So your heal is like more likely to heal you back up based on the hit that you took. So it's pretty nice in that situation. And you can combine it with some other options that actually make it fairly easy to maintain that extra, that extra damage bonus with that 95% or above HP. Things like auto rest assign that will pop your rest assign for you is probably the weakest of those options, in my opinion. This one works a little bit better with something else, but at the end of the day, with auto rest assign, you can also just press the rest assign button. Now, it is worth mentioning, the rest assign button does tend to be a bit laggy. It does tend to fall behind. I'm sure we've all had moments where we spam our heal and we still die, and you hear the heal button go off, but you still, didn't get the heal in time. It happens. Having the ability to not have to worry about that would be nice. However, you could also just press your heal earlier. Definitely something that can happen. One of the better choices, in my opinion, would be something like sign shielding. You take your hit, you heal back up. When you heal back up, you have 20% damage resistance on top of that 5% you already have from Lively HP. That means that next hit that you take is less likely to deal enough damage to make you use more than one rest assign. Pop a rest assign, you're back up again, your damage resistance is back again, you're good to go. So it's something that kind of keeps you in a bit of a more comfortable spot, in my opinion. And I feel like it's probably one of the better combinations with Lively HP, just to sit in a good spot for it. You also alternatively could go with Fortune Sign. Fortune Sign has a 20% chance that you won't use a rest or a reverser sign whenever you use them. So it's 20% chance to not proc or not to use one, and save that extra rester / reverser sign, basically making it free. This does stack with something like Waker, so you are able to use Waker as a subclass and have even less chance of using one. So it's pretty cool. I'm not sure how it stacks exactly, if it does a 10% chance proc and then whatever Waker's is, or if it stacks them together exactly. I'm not, again, 100% sure on that specifically there, but it does. They basically, what we understand is that it does work. It does go through either the check combined or both checks in general. So definitely super cool. And it gives you the ability to keep your HP up even easier. So I personally would take Lively HP and Sign Shielding together. That way it just ensures that the hit that I do take, whenever I do take that hit, doesn't hit me that hard. And then if you want something else to even make it easier, of course you can grab Fortune Sign, but I would personally take something else instead of, putting so much in keeping my HP up. Last one, well, not the last one because there's shortage HP. I guess we'll talk about shortage HP first. So shortage HP gives you more. No, I want to talk about hysterical strength. I like hysterical strength, man. I'm talking about hysterical strength first. Hysterical strength is 4% potency base. And then when you have an ailment, you get plus 2% potency and offensive PP recovery plus 10% and damage resistance plus 10%. So having a status element isn't something you really can control. With that other EX augment, you can grab shortage PP burn up. What that does is it gives you a burn every time you consume 100 PP. Not every time you are minus 100 PP. So it's not like if you have 200, you're at 100. It's that you used 100. So you could be at 150, but you've used a total of 100 and it procs the burn. During the burn, you have natural PP recovery plus 30% and burn potency is decreased. The bone potency decrease is nullified. And what that means essentially is normally if you're burned, you have a 10% damage reduction that you have on your character. This removes that nullification. Now, there are some misconceptions about how this burn actually works. So I want to clear the air on a few things because I was a bit off, but not exactly. So originally I believed that the burn kept you from taking any status effects. That's not exactly true. You do still get status affected, but you can immediately overwrite them with the burn. Even a regular burn that you get burned by something else, you can overwrite with this burn, and it removes the bonus, or the burn potency decrease nullification. The burn potency decrease is removed, completely nullified. So you can be status affected by something else, overwrite it, get status affected again, and overwrite it again. That's what makes all down resistance kind of pointless, because if you're using this combination, you want to have an elemental, or you want to have a status effect on you, and you can force the status effect to be one that's in your favor. So even if something is status affecting you over and over again, you can essentially fight against it without losing any damage whatsoever. Very, very good in my opinion. So it makes that all down resistance pretty pointless, and it's actually very, very useful overall. You can combine this with something like Endure Pain PB Boost or Patience Defense to allow you to either get your PB even faster or be even tankier. You can also combine it, funny enough, with Shortage HP. It's going to lead us into talking about Shortage HP itself. So Shortage HP, when you're at below 50% HP, or 50% or below, your potency is increased by 1.5% and damage resistance is increased by 30%. Now, those of you astute might remember that I didn't think this was all that great, right? Because you don't really have a way of maintaining your 50% or lower HP. But then we really thought about it, and this is more like damage utility than it is actually just conditional damage. Because realistically speaking, even if you don't have it procced, you're not below 50% HP, it's still 4.5% potency, meaning that at worst, you're still doing as good as anything else would be doing. Any other effect that you would take, right, with extra defense or extra PP regen or whatever, any of those effects, realistically speaking, would be the only benefit they would have there. But if you are below 50% HP, not only are you getting an extra 30% damage resistance, you're actually getting an extra 1.5% potency, making you massively stronger. It's the biggest boost we have right now. Meaning that at the end of the day, while I personally don't have this on my gear, if I had the opportunity, I absolutely would. Because if you take a burn, let's say for example, you have a burn on you, and that burn is ticking closer to 50%, and then the boss gets downed and it ticks over, it's a match made in heaven. Maybe you're fighting a boss you're very familiar with, and sitting at lower HP is not a big deal. However, if you are fighting a boss you're not familiar with and you have to be above that 50% HP, it's fine that you don't have Shortage HP procced. It's totally okay. It might actually save your life if your HP does drop below 50% and you take a hit you weren't expecting to take a hit on, because you have that 30% damage resistance, which is the most damage resistance you can get currently right now with any of these EX augments. I think the highest is Patience Defense, which is at what, 25% maximum, which I believe is correct because technically Patience Defense was mistranslated, which leads us into some incorrect descriptions. We're gonna go ahead and go over really quick here. So heads up, flashbang, the NGS site, I apologize. But we have EX Heavy Attack Protect series, which was incorrectly translated. It says non-boss enemies, it's supposed to be boss enemies. So, oh, hang on, there we go. So it's supposed to be boss enemies. And then we have EX Patience Defense, which starts at 5%, but it's actually supposed to be 15%. So these are just incorrect descriptions. These still work the way they're supposed to, but it does let you know that those descriptions are incorrect. So that is the highest amount of damage bonus that you can get is 25% from what we understand. Granted, it ramps up very quickly. We thought it ramped up slower, but this ramps up very, very quickly. And it's easy to maintain, but you also can have up to 30% damage resistance when it actually matters. So 30%, 40% is actually pretty solid overall, and you are fairly tanky, a lot tankier than you would think. Now, one thing to mention as well is people think this burn can kill you. It can't. Burn does not kill you. Burn will take you to 1 HP, just like poison, just like anything that does tick damage on you from any status effect. However, the following hit can kill you. Any other hit will kill you. However, it is unable to kill you. So if you're someone who's like, oh, I'll just hit low HP and they'll be fine, then yeah, you can absolutely do that. That's totally okay. If you're, for example, say you're doing Arcs Record and you're trying to burst an enemy down in a lot of situations, those Arcs Records, you're not trying to take any hits anyway. So you're going to push as hard as you absolutely can, and when you drop below 50%, it's just going to be a damage boost for you. And let's say, for example, it fails and you die. You're just going to reset anyway. So it's going to be very useful. I think, honestly, the most meta, strongest opinion we have access to is going to be Hysterical Strength, Shortage PP Burn Up, and Shortage HP. Bar none, nowhere close. So let's talk about a few honorable mentions and some combinations you guys might think about using. Light Attack Protect. That, along, granted, it's not that great, but that, along with something like Enemy Field PP, which you get PP back every time you kill an enemy out in the field, like anytime enemy dies nearby. Basically the effect that that force has, you don't have to have a weapon. You don't have to have a force subclass. You can just have this on one of your weapons, and you basically have the force subclass. You essentially have infinite PP and PSE bursts, and while you're farming things like dex based, it's very, very powerful. And then of course you have the extra damage resistance in case you get clipped or take a hit somewhere for some reason, who knows. And then some like lively HP on there on top of that, just very easy to maintain, not a big deal. And you'll have a pretty good weapon to just fight random enemies with. Heavy protected, as we know, it's supposed to be for bossing. It's just a good defensive choice. It's just solid, 15% all the time, no big deal there. Yes, if you really want to use stealth wall, combining it with dazzle camo does work. That's exactly something you should be doing. But dazzle camo is something that every force and every braver, in my opinion, should be using anyway. That way they're not locked having to have ranger as a subclass. I mean, gunner and rangers, it's up to you at the end of the day. But gunners, if you don't want to have rangers as a subclass, then of course, again, you have dazzle camo. However, I'm sorry, I think gunners, right? You have dazzle camo as an option. However, keep in mind that it's going to take up one of your slots if you are trying to min-max your damage. So worth mentioning. Risky Stance works with something like Patience Defense and Endure Pain PB Boost, since you do take 1 damage to yourself every 10 seconds. I did misread this. This is like really weird. It's a 30% chance to recover 10 PP when hit by an attack. Or when hit by attack. It means that when you attack, you have a chance to recover 10 PP at 30% rate. So not when you're hit by an attack, but when you hit with an attack. So that was really weird in its translation, but Risky Stance works well because it does the 10% chance of doing 1 damage to yourself on a 10-second cooldown. That works within Patience Defense and Endure Pain PB Boost. Keep in mind, it's 10% chance to deal damage to yourself, and if you take no damage for 30 seconds, it resets its cooldown. So just keep that in mind. You can get unlucky and reset the cooldown of your damage resistance if you don't take any damage. So worth mentioning. Outside of that, realistically, the rest are just kind of up to you. It is worth mentioning that I don't know how this exactly works specifically, but Tough Mind leave you at 1 HP. If it stacks with other abilities that leave you at 1 HP, if this one procs before something like, let's say, for example, Fighter's ability to be left at 1 HP, or to basically have one-shot protection, if it keeps them from burning their overdrive or overload or whatever the heck it's called, then it's actually pretty solid. But if it uses that first and then uses this, then it sucks. This is just in a way to get access to what hunters already have on a percent chance. I believe it's on a percent chance. Yeah, on a percent chance to not die. Correction, not a percent chance, just you survive 1 HP and a cooldown of like 180 seconds. But either way, it's one of those, like, it might work this way and that's okay. But realistically, what should you use? Where is this going, right? Your choices, in my opinion, are something like either Hysterical Strength along with Shortage PP Burn or Lively HP. That's really where you're going to go with either one of these. I don't think you are using Shortage HP without Shortage PP Burn, and if you're using Shortage PP Burn, might as well be using Hysterical Strength. So they kind of just go hand in hand. I don't see a way to realistically keep that lower HP, or at least force the lower HP, outside of just walking into attacks, which is unreliable at best. Tech Arms is solid for fighters, and just because it encourages a fighting style you already use on fighter. And something like Tri-Shield, the shield actually work with force, but they work against Waker. With Waker, it doesn't allow you to, the shields basically get used before your actual block gets used. So it's anti-synergy there. I believe that also happens with Bouncer. I'm not sure. I actually would have to test that, since Waker shield is kind of similar in that situation. But the benefit is it actually does not work. It's not anti-synergy with force, where it actually does give you elemental bullets on force. However, the cooldown doesn't start until after all shields are used. If you are using it on force, make sure you are burning those shields and burning the elemental bullets. That way you can go ahead and come back again for more elemental bullets in the future. But that's pretty much it. Let me know if there's anything I missed as far as combinations you guys have considered. Again, keep in mind, this is just information. You can choose to go with whatever you'd like. At the end of the day, they're all good. They're all a lot of potency. Some of them just quite literally don't work together, like Shortage HP and Lively HP. But hey, you could put both of them together and be like, hey, whenever I'm above, I'm good. Whenever I'm below, I'm solid. That's totally fine. That's up to you at the end of the day. This is just here so you can make an informed decision on what you should be going after. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed. If you're going to keep up with more, I'm going to try to get this video out on time. We'll see. Take care, my friends. Peace out.